Hello everyone. I hope you all had a good weekend. In this video, I'm just going to be breaking down um, BTC and what we saw uh, last week in terms of that big correction or crash, whatever you want to call it. I'll be focusing on this asset because as we mostly know that altcoins usually follow BTC, so it will save us some time knowing what we expect to see in the near future and possible scenarios we can see playing out. So let's get started. Now, first thing first, I want to go over market sentiment. So right now, the market is in extreme fear. Last week we had fear after we saw that first sell-off at 27, but now we're at extreme fear. So we know this is one of the lowest BTC has been. So we know when the market's fear, that's when institutions look to buy in. So I want you to keep that in mind. When we see this much fear in the market, is usually opportune time for institutions or what we call smart money to start accumulating the orders. And it doesn't matter on whichever asset. That's just how institutions usually work because they want to take advantage of the small players or retail liquidity. So first thing first, if you went and watched the last week's video, I basically mentioned that we were going to see a correction or a crash, whatever you want to call it, on BTC. And if you remember, I said we were going to see some sort of support found in these regions, and we did. We found it at the 30K region, which is also a psychological level, which me personally was able to catch a long from. But you can see this order block tapped in perfectly before we see that rally back up to that 40K region. So we understand that there is some buying pressure within this zone. Now, first thing first, you need to understand that, as I mentioned, just like institutions accumulate, they also distribute. So when I say distribution, I don't mean that big players are just selling off their holdings at once. What they're in essence doing, which creates this distribution, as you see, is because they have so much holdings in the market, they can't just sell them all their coins in an exchange like that. That's not how it works, because if they did that, it'd cause a flash crash in the market, and they'd be able to the average price of their sellings they'd be end up losing money. So in order for them to sell their prices at premium levels to increase their profits, they need to manipulate price. So that's when smart money comes into it. So what in essence they do is, say I have a few billion in BTC and I need to sell it off. So what an institution or cash flow hedge fund will do, they will first look to sell their positions at the first high, which will cause that small rally. And then as you see, and then they'll buy more to manipulate price to take it higher, where they start slowly unloading their position. And once they see that small sentiment and market structure, you understand that it's clear intent from the institutions or whales, whatever you want to call them, to start where they start selling the majority of their holdings so they can start positioning themselves correct. Now, in the past 2 weeks, we've seen a 50% correction in BTC, which is one of the fastest corrections we've seen in BTC ever in that short span of time. So that's hence why we have all this extreme fear in the market. Now, because we have all that extreme fear in the market, this is another confluence of mine that I believe the institution will look to start accumulating their orders. Now, in order for this bias to be valid, I need to see some sort of consolidation to take place in this level between the 40K and 30K region. Price may peak above it a little, but I need to see price come up higher before institution look to manipulate price lower. And this is the important part. I need to see price break below this region before we see price come back and start consolidating again. Now, the reason I say this is because you need to understand, think about all the buyers in this region, because this is a very valid support, the 30K region. There is a lot of money sitting at these levels because there's a lot of stop losses here, right? This is a valid order block, of a valid support. So a lot of retail players or small players will have their stop losses here. So there's a lot of money here. Now, in order for a market to work, it needs to take money from one side of the range to move it into the other. So for example, if you're looking to sell, you need less buyers in the market. So you need to take out buyers, so you can start selling or see price move in that selling direction. So in order for this bias to be valid, I need to see consolidation and price take out these sellers. So a quick spike down, which will trap buyers who got in early and take them out, and then may even trap sellers, because once we see that break, we'll see people try to sell in the market, and then you'll see people saying, oh, we're in a bearish market, we broke the level. Then they'll start shorting, and then it'll trap them as well, because we'll see that consolidation coming. And then what will happen, people will be even more scared, and they'll be confused, and they won't know what to do. A lot of people will sell, may even sell off their holdings because of the confusion. And thing is, institutions love this fear. They use it to their advantage. So in order for this buy to be valid, and that scenario from the last video where I talked about support being found, so we can potentially see an all-time high to take out the selling pressure here, is we need to see that liquidity run. So price needs to move below this level to collect all that money before we can come back up. And once I do see this, then we'll look to be buying more positions on certain altcoins and cryptos, because even if you aren't invested in crypto and you're invested in other altcoins, you need to look at BTC, because BTC is what moves the market. Because even if you look at last week's video where I went over XRP and we were looking at the bullish scenario for XRP, I mentioned that the only thing that will push XRP down is Bitcoin, and the only thing that is pushing XRP down is this panic crash that we saw, or correction we saw on BTC, because otherwise XRP is still very bullish. So, and so are certain altcoins. So that's why we do need to be aware of Bitcoin's sentiment and what the market currently is looking at. Because even if we look at the market number of addresses with 10k plus Bitcoin holdings, you may not be able to see it here, but what we were seeing is people are slowly accumulating. So the whales who have 10k plus BTC are slowly buying, because we're seeing that small influx from the 30k region. So that is another confluence built, showing us that big players are looking to buy in now. Again, this is all speculative. We will need to be patient and wait to see that liquidity run first, because that will be my first and final confirmation before we look to start buying again. So be prepared of that, and keep a lookout for that, and have this region marked out on your own chart so you understand where liquidity will be taken, because most retail traders will be scared shitless. They'll be looking to sell their holdings after we see a break, or if we see that break. But for that buy, we need to see it. That will be the most probable play for me personally. And this is another scenario I have marked out in terms of accumulation, what we could potentially see. Let me just do it. I did it on a line graph so we can make more sense. So this is what I would like to see, because this is a clear type of accumulation that can potentially take place. See that selling climax, automatic rally, test, secondary test, and then this is where we are right now. So I want to see price push up higher. Then we can see institutions start selling to manipulate price to take that run of liquidity. So we could see that spring and that test, and then we could see that price come back up, where we'll look to start buying BTC or certain altcoins. Because again, remember, there is a lot of money sitting in these regions now, and in order for this buy scenario to be valid, we need to see that money taken out from these regions to see one last scare or push in the market before we see that recovery. Because I see a lot of people screaming on social media, buy the dip, but truth is, you need confirmations, because once you see such a big push in the market, you can't just keep buying the dip, because what happens if price just tanks that 80%? What are you going to do then, right? You need confirmation, and you don't want to be overly exposed to the crypto market because of how volatile it is. So that's why I always recommend, don't be overexposed, have good risk management, because it will help keep your emotions intact. But yeah, we are, as mentioned before, we are still bullish on higher time frames. We haven't made any lower structure. We're still seeing higher highs and higher lows. So I want to see price come up higher, take that liquidity and push up before we see that potential recovery come in, because we're not going to see a simple V-shaped recovery like that. Because if we see a recovery like that, then I'll be much more looking for selling pressure, because if we see that straight recovery, it tells me that institutions are looking to manipulate price so they can sell back down again. But if we take longer at this level and we see price consolidating and potentially manipulating, then that is very good indication that the institutions and the whales are manipulating price to accumulate their holdings. So again, let's be patient, let's wait, because we are in the early phases, but we need to wait for Bitcoin to form a base and potentially accumulate and take that liquidity. So, and once we see institutions show their hands, then we'll look to take those longs in the market and look to capitalize off BTC and alts as well. So guys, if you found this video useful at all, please give it a like, subscribe if you haven't already. So we do make more videos in the future. And yeah, if you any feedback or any criticism, just drop it down in the comments. I will be going over them later. And yeah, if you are interested in joining our service in terms of seeing when we'll be looking to be buying or selling, just go in the description and click the link below, and you'll be able to get set up. So with all that said and done, hope you guys all have a good week, because we are going to be, my eyes are going to be glued to the crypto market. And yeah, hope found this useful, and